Hey, welcome to a show and performance video on everybody's favorite topic, recoil springs. We're going to talk about several of the types, some of the hype, some of the internet lore, some of the internet fakery, some of the theory conjecture. A lot of it's conjecture. But we're going to get down to brass tacks. We're going to talk some facts. We're going to actually put some numbers and logic to this. So, recoil springs. When do I replace my recoil spring? When do I replace my recoil spring? If I've heard it once, I've heard it 10,000 times. So, let's make a video here. Let's get together, get everybody on the same page, and see what we got. First off, we got music wire. This is the Wolf spring. It's made from music wire. It is the industry standard. It is in just about every new gun you can shake a stick at, every new 1911. Let's specify. We're talking about 5-inch, 4 1/4 Commander 1911s. We'll talk about shorties a little later. So music wire, a couple of the disadvantages is that it can't be heat treated post winding. It's a 100-plus-year-old tech. In 1834, it replaced iron as the standard for a spring. So we're talking it's tempered spring steel. So the batch variances can be there because a whole batch of wire can be tempered a little bit differently than the next batch. So I think as a person that has one of those little spring deals where you can put your fish scale on it, test your springs, you could probably test. If you got 10 recoil springs that are all 16 pounds, you can probably test them and find quite a variance in their weight. The recommended replacement interval on music wire springs is 5,000 rounds, or if you have a 1/2-inch overall length reduction in the spring. So measure it when you put it in, keep an eye on it. When you clean the gun, you're 1,000 rounds in, you're cleaning the gun, measure that spring, see if it falls within this specification, because at a 1/2-inch of overall reduction, you have a 20% reduction in the actual spring weight of that spring. So you got a 16-pound recoil spring, you're gonna lose 3.2 pounds of actual recoil spring weight there. So it's going to put it more in the specification of where the government print, which specifies music wire as a spring material, by the way. So, then you're going to be relying on your mainspring to really control things, which that's fine because replacement interval on the mainspring is 10,000 rounds. So that's kind of a little bit of a rule of thumb on the standard Wolf springs is replace your recoil spring and then every other time replace your mainspring. Their mainsprings or their recoil springs do come with a new firing pin spring, so it's never a bad idea to replace that sucker either. So those are 3 good springs to replace in a schedule, so to speak. Let's say you got a gun you shoot a lot, then that's a good rule of thumb. The next kind of spring is chrome silicon. These are made by ISMI. They're heat treated after they wind them. They're shot peened. And they've had independent tests run of the springs where they've gone through 100,000 rounds of compressions and still come back in specification for that particular spring within the range that they established for that spring being still good. They do, however, recommend a 1-year replacement interval. So let's say you got that one gun that you just shoot, you practice with it. I would say if you're going with ISMI springs, recoil spring, mainspring, every year replace that sucker. Another good thing to do is if your recoil spring or your gun, your gun is doing something strange at the range, pop a new recoil spring in it and see if that cures the little issue, because a certain change in the way that the slide cycles can affect certain things. I don't want to downplay the importance of a recoil spring. So, in this area here, if this is a gun that you defend yourself with, some of the people out there on the internet that recommend crazy things like 750 round replacement of this spring. That might suit you. These are inexpensive consumables, so that might be something to look into as well. And if you keep track of this, you'll be on top of this one. I have actually seen a lot of this mentioned online, as far as guys complaining about, hey, I just put this recoil spring in and now it's this short compared to a new one, thinking that there's something wrong with it. And it's, you know, they'll go out and they'll shoot a few hundred rounds and the spring is like a 1/4 inch shorter than the original. Well, it doesn't exactly stay the same length, pal. Then we're down to flat wire. Flat wire springs came into the market about 15 years ago as the Everlast recoil system from Nighthawk. There's some advantages here, you know, more force over the same compression distance, which to me means they feel more consistent. When you cycle the slide on a gun with a standard recoil spring in it, you can feel that spring stack up. You can feel the tension build. On a flat wire spring, when you put it in your gun, not so much. It feels very consistent through the whole stroke. And that's because if you think about the coils, there's more space in between the coils. So on a flat wire spring, they actually do a little less moving or compressing than a standard round wire spring would have to do over the same distance. They absorb more energy in equal space, and they have improved fatigue life, and that kind of goes back to they move less, basically, over if you were to zone in on a particular area of that spring during a compression cycle, it has to do less work than a round wire spring over a given space. So consistency, one of the downfalls on this is you have to use a 1/4 inch guide rod, which can typically be a full length guide rod for a lot of stuff, although I have seen some GI length flat wire guide rods. However, I wouldn't be a fan of going with a flat wire without going with a full length guide rod, just to keep that spring collected, because it can move a little bit inside the recoil spring tunnel there, and you'll hear this vicious scraping sound inside there, especially if you don't have a real clean, if there's still machine marks inside that tunnel, that spring is going to scrape that tunnel and make the most odd sound when you cycle that slide, and it's just like nails on chalkboard to me. You know, some people think it sounds great, it sounds like a well-oiled machine, but I think it sounds like a poorly done inside of your dust cover is what it sounds like to me, or a guide rod that's rough. So basically from top to bottom, you've got probably standard. Nothing wrong with these springs. I'm not downplaying their importance and their history and their ability to work and function and last for you. I mean, 5,000 rounds, most people don't put that much through their gun in a year's time. Come on. Chrome silicon, absolutely quote unquote bulletproof in your gun. And then the flat wire is like the next evolution. And I have actually seen flat wire main springs. I've got flat wire springs and magazines. That's a tremendous application for those because magazine springs can and do wear out very quickly. Especially if you've got just a couple magazines that you use in your 20 to 30,000 round gun, you're gonna find that you start to develop issues with conventional magazine springs very, very quickly. So I hope that answered some of your questions on recoil springs. I hope we didn't skip anything. We want to do if you want us to do a follow-up video, if we missed something here, trying to think if I did, but you know, hopefully we covered it all for you. If you want to see more stuff, more videos on other stuff, comment down below. You want to see me hit some stuff with a hammer, you want to see me file some stuff, just let us know in the comments, and we'll try to get to those videos as soon as we can.